CS grads are struggling and everyone's blaming AI. That's not actually what's happening. I'm Alex, and this is Hammer Strikes. Overall, bachelor's degree career outcomes for the class of 2024 came in at about 86% employed or further education within 6 months. But full-time employment was just under 55%, down from 57% for the class of 2023. And NACE's discipline breakout, computer and information sciences, saw a 1.9 percentage point decline in career outcomes versus the prior class. So things are pretty hard for our CS grads, okay? You know, the main statistic that matters here is full-time employment being just under 55%. Many of these kids are underemployed, okay? But that doesn't mean that CS grads are doomed. The story is that the market is frightened. Full-time placement softened and the path got noisier. Now, it's not exactly apocalyptic, okay? It's not like nobody's getting hired. You know, more than half of the graduates are finding jobs. The floor didn't collapse, but a clean path from a degree to a full-time job absolutely got weaker. Okay? So there's real labor market pressure that's happening, right? Let's just zoom out a second. Okay, the New York Fed says labor market conditions for recent grads worsened at the end of 2025. Unemployment rose to about 5.7% in 2025 Q4, up from 5.3% in 2025 Q3. The same New York Fed update says the recent grad underemployment rate rose to 42.5%, its highest since 2020. And for computer science majors specifically, the New York Fed's major level data shows about 7% unemployment and roughly 19.1% underemployment in the latest outcomes by major table surfaced in its data feed. Okay. So, the problem isn't just unemployment, it's a lot of graduates working below the level that they expected to work. This happened across, multiple fields before. Pretty much every major engineering field has gone through a version of this. Basically, there's a lot of demand for specific skill sets. Colleges start admitting more and more students into that field, and that starts driving wages down. There's increased competition in the fields, and basically there's just not enough of jobs to give all of the kids who are graduating. This isn't the result of AI, that's a factor, but this more looks like kind of what you see in pretty much every major tech cycle ever. Take petroleum engineering as an example. Okay, petroleum engineers, they make, 6 figures, 130 plus. They're one of the highest paying college majors of all time. It became quite popular, because students were saying, hey, I can make 6 figures just, from graduating from just a simple 4-year program. So those degree programs got flooded, and over time the market became oversaturated. Now there's a lot of people that are competing for those jobs. And when you take something like petroleum engineering, which is very boom bust, okay, whenever there's a downturn in the market, basically a lot of people lose their jobs. There's a lot of layoffs, and then new students aren't being hired. Okay, this is a very common thing. Now, what happens? The people that survive, basically they go into consulting, right? Companies start paying for experience on a case-by-case basis. And so the most competent workers and the most entrepreneurial workers survive the downturn. Okay, this is common. This is a common thing. And that's kind of what we see happening right now in the tech space, okay? We have, over 100,000 of people, sometimes some estimates saying hundreds of thousands of tech workers that are being impacted by layoffs in 2025 and 2026. Okay, so depending on the tracker, 2025 tech layoffs were somewhere in the low to mid six figures globally, and 2026 is still adding to that. Okay. Now, as far as my saturation argument, okay, we can see that the NCES says bachelor's degrees in computer science and information sciences and support services rose from 47,000 in, the 2010s, all the way up to 108,000 in 2021 and 2022. That is a 129% increase in bachelor's degree graduations. That's crazy. That's a crazy increase. That's like a double times 2 increase. So yeah, a lot more people have entered the pipeline. So you can say that the market is crowded. Crowded doesn't mean dead, but it means that permissionless builders are now part of that competition too. Okay, and even with this oversaturation, of course, and this is true across all fields, top programs still are experiencing very high placement rates. So, this cycle pretty much, it's happened before. So there's strain in the market. Basically, in downturns, experienced operators, experienced engineers, they go into consulting. What's different now is that independent value creation is no longer gated by 10 years of experience and a client list. This is the thing that makes the computer science market downturn shift different. Okay? Before, you would need equipment. You would need experience with knowing how to work with expensive tooling. Before, you would need access or knowledge of some machinery processes, different clients within the field in order to actually have an impact. But now these CS grads, they can build with AI-assisted tooling. The cost of execution is lower than it's ever been before. Cloud platforms lower infrastructure costs and friction. Distribution is online now, especially when you're talking about software, and one person can prototype software faster than ever before. So this is the most interesting labor market that we've seen. We have more graduates in the pipeline, which we've seen before. We have softer full-time outcomes, which we've seen before. Elevated underemployment, layoffs tightening the market, and larger independent professional services. But the weird part isn't that grads are struggling. The weird part is that a dude waiting on tables now has a real shot at shipping software over the weekend. Let me say that again. The weird part is that a dude waiting tables now has a real shot at shipping software over the weekend. That's not a statistical claim. It's a structural claim, and it fits the evidence, okay? CS grads are getting squeezed right now. Everybody wants to blame AI. The overall college outcome picture isn't collapse, okay? The old model, normally people would survive by going independent, going into consulting. Big companies pay for operator expertise. But what's not normal here is that building is no longer locked behind a permission, payroll, or a giant team. So what happens if all the CS grads waiting on tables stop mass applying and just start building? What happens? The whole market would end up getting flooded with software. Large companies likely would probably no longer control the progress. Tight teams that are small likely can outpace large corporations and ship enterprise-grade tooling, especially with the help of things like AI, with the help of things like serverless infrastructure in the cloud. It doesn't really take much. To me, this is just a cocktail waiting to happen. Basically, a lot of CS grads are sitting on top of skill stacks that are just latent in the market. And one day they may choose to simply turn it on. What happens if they just start building? I'm Alex. This is Hammer Strikes. Go build something.